it!
PlayStation.
The Last of Us launched on PC and oh boy, it is a disgusting and quite frankly despicable scam. Every single aspect of this port is broken. I'm not exaggerating or blowing the issues out of proportion when I say that. Every single aspect of this port was broken at launch, and 99.9% of the game is still a broken, buggy mess despite Naughty Dog's repeated attempts to gaslight the scam victims into thinking everything is actually fine and it's in fact their fault for the game being broken. Hence why they had to patch the fucking walk-in animations for Ellie when going upstairs. I wish I was joking, but you will struggle to ever find a more broken PC port than this throughout history. Even goddamn Batman Arkham Knight had a better port upon its initial launch, and that shit had to be delisted because of how laughably bad it was. Unfortunately, however, Naughty Dog doesn't give a single fuck about their customers, as proven by their recent history. Just the past couple of years have proven alone that Naughty Dog is one of the most egregiously scummy companies in gaming. Reselling a game to PS5 players via an underwhelming remake that only served as a means of cashing in on the normies coming off of the Last of Us show, whilst cutting the multiplayer content in order to resell it to you as a standalone title that will undoubtedly cost you another full $70 US.
I'm sick of it! I'm tired of it right now! I can't handle it more!
If it ever releases, to now flat out scamming people on PC as a further means of cashing in on the people coming into the franchise off of the show, via once again reselling The Last of Us, but this time at $60 despite the very same game being a full $70 US on their own storefront. You know, all you can do at this point as a console player is laugh at the fact that Sony, when selling you The Last of Us Part 1 on PlayStation on sale, was still more expensive than The Last of Us full priced on Steam. And all you should do as a PC player right now with The Last of Us is to not buy the remake whatsoever. Either pirate it, and yes, I am fully endorsing the piracy of The Last of Us on PC. This product flat out should not be legal to sell, but if you do want to play the game legally, then simply emulate the PS3 version. That version is actually a playable title. There really is no plausible explanation for this remake's initial existence other than to cash in on the dumb normies who will buy it no matter what because it's newer, let alone the abhorrent rushing of the PC version. And yes, that is exactly what Naughty Dog has done here with this port. They have outright stolen people's money and scammed them. They have sold an almost completely non-functioning title and still haven't delisted it momentarily, as they attempt to salvage the biggest mess of a port in history. Even fucking Warner Bros knew what was right to do when they released Arkham Knight's infamous PC port. Delist the trash until it was fixed. And we are all well aware of how infamous Warner Bros is when it comes to being anti their own communities, especially modding. But of course, delisting it wouldn't help Naughty Dog. So what did they do instead? Well, they poorly attempted to gaslight the victims of their scam on Twitter. The Last of Us Part 1 PC players, we know some of you have not experienced the Naughty Dog quality you expected. Our team is working hard to resolve issues currently preventing some of you from experiencing the game to ensure it reaches the quality level you expect and deserve. I mean, what else could they do to show good faith to fans after falsely marketing The Last of Us 2, abusing the copyright system relentlessly in order to silence critics of them, releasing a mediocre remake to cash in on the normies who don't know any better, and outright scamming PC customers? Although a truly hilarious attempt at gaslighting players into thinking that only some players were experiencing issues in the fundamentally broken port, it is still nevertheless an absolutely disgusting attempt from Naughty Dog to hide the severity of just how broken this port is. After all, if the average consumer isn't aware of just how bad the port is, then they don't have to delist their scam. How dare players call them out for it? Only some players had negative experiences with the port, and of course, it's your fault for not updating your drivers. As we also encouraged players to ensure you are using the latest Nvidia, AMD and Intel graphics drivers. It's not even as if all of the countless issues with the game can be fixed. If you were smart enough to watch Digital Foundry's video covering the game, you'd be aware of the fact they discovered that the port uses the exact same compression scheme as the PS5 version.
Essentially, when you look in the game folder, you can see that the game has like files for UDL compression scheme, the decompression scheme as a result of that too. That's used on the PlayStation 5. It is typically never really used on PC releases. PC releases uses things like zlib and stuff like that, much more CPU friendly. And in this game, when you just load into a new area, you'll see huge background streaming occurring, and the CPU related performance drops heavily.
And as Digital Foundry stated, this compression system is not commonly used in the PC games development space for a reason. Honestly, that fundamental and near unfixable issue with the port was likely Naughty Dog's fault, and for once not Iron Galaxy's, as no matter how incompetent Iron Galaxy has showed itself to be in the past with the Arkham Knight PC port, among others, I don't believe for a second that they'd be incompetent enough to use the same compression system as the PS5 version on PC. Not to mention the rampant issues with VRAM plaguing this port. In order to obtain last generation graphics in this port, you at the very least need a resounding 12 gigabytes of VRAM. A baffling fact considering the stark and unbearable difference between high and medium settings. If you have 8 gigabytes of VRAM, then I apologize in advance to Naughty Dog here, because my god, we are stuck with late generation PS2 graphics, which is made all the more baffling by the fact that the remake even on PS5 doesn't have as good graphics as The Last of Us Part 2, a title that was made for the PS4, a system with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. How on earth Iron Galaxy still gets contracts to port games to the PC platform is honestly quite baffling to me, especially considering how they not only co-developed The Last of Us port, but also Arkham Knight. Out of all the titles I'd expect to be as fucked as this, it certainly wouldn't be Sony's magnum opus, aka The Last of Us. Quite frankly, this port should have been delisted, and there was in fact a reason as to why no one was given review copies for this port. Naughty Dog's lack of delisting of this port is something that should not be forgotten. Hell, maybe you somehow don't believe Naughty Dog scam PC customers here despite it falling under every requirement to be labelled as one, especially if you were planning on playing the title on your Steam Deck, since Neil Druckmann outright exclaimed prior to launch that Ellie and Joel will grace the Steam Deck. Don't worry.
So that was a fucking lie.
Turns out Ellie and Joel did not in fact grace the Steam Deck.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
It is flat out unplayable on the deck. Why is it unplayable? Because its optimization issues don't just come down to bafflingly using the same compression system as the PS5 version, but also down to the fact they broke a major rule Microsoft laid out for any DirectX 12 title. Do not use D3 D11 on 12. Pulling this lazy bullshit is responsible for both the shoddy CPU performance on The Witcher 3's next-gen patch, and now The Last of Us's PC port. At a very basic and fundamental level, this port is too fucked to fix right now, and likely, at the very least, needed another 10 months in the oven. But no. Iron Galaxy and Naughty Dog just had to rush out the port months before it was even out of what I'd consider an alpha stage of development in order to cash in on the Pedro Pascal hype, undoubtedly created by the show. But you know what? Maybe Naughty Dog and Sony have an excuse for putting out this pile of shit. Let's ignore the basic fact that they obviously knew the state of the game when publishing it, since they bloody made it, and hear their explanation for blatantly falsely marketing the game to Steam Deck owners and just flat out scamming all customers of the game on PC, after promising it would be fixed due to the delay they gave it. IGN points out that Steam Deck support for The Last of Us Part 1 isn't a priority for Naughty Dog, despite their blatant pre-launch promises that were never corrected until after they scammed people. After all, it's obviously better to do wrong by your community and then ask for forgiveness rather than simply not scamming your customer base. To which Neil Druckmann responded in a quote tweet, "Correction. Getting verified isn't a priority. Optimization and stability on the Steam Deck and other PC platforms is."
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
That's the
fucking exact same thing. That is literally the exact same thing. Getting verified on Steam after Valve themselves checked your game and listed it as unsupported is the same as focusing on optimization and stability improvements for the deck. If it were any other scenario, I'd say playable would be perfectly acceptable Steam Deck support level, but in this case, it's very clear that the literal only reason as to why this game is labeled unsupported is because of the egregiously poor optimization and the poor being flat out horrific at its most fundamental level. Not to mention, this is the worst way to respond to the fact that you outright scammed and lied to your customers who pre-ordered the game on the Steam Deck, and perhaps bought it afterwards because you didn't delist it and they were unknowing of the issues with it, since you lot are trying your hardest to downplay the issues. All things considered, if there's one developer that currently deserves to be boycotted, it sure as hell aren't the Hogwarts Legacy developers, it's Naughty Dog.